Hello again, and here we are exploring who we are as consciousness. And this particular mini series we're doing is on life after death, my experiences with that. And the reason we're doing that is to really see that the big difficulty in understanding that we're not our physical body is that we're so rooted in this. Since the time we're a little child, we're identified our name and this form and our concern with our bodies. And so, seeing that our body, after it dies, that there is a subtle body, there's a soul, there's an energy body that continues as we continue our journey. And so, I'm going to tell you some more examples I had of experiencing someone's deceased loved one and having these healing reunions, which is really significant. And so, it's for the purpose of helping us really become more rooted in ourselves as consciousness instead of a body mind. And it's also for the purpose of helping us cope better with the loss of our loved ones and knowing that communicating with them when we're feeling a sense of loss, telling them, I hate it that you're not here, and I'd love it if you were here, I remember, and really getting back to a place of gratitude for the time that you had with that loved one. So talking directly to them is why we're doing this. We're talking about examples of how it makes sense. So one of my first experiences was a woman, after the one I told you last week, was a woman who had lost the love of her life in a car accident. And she was seeing me for about a year. And at the end of that year, she had sensed him around her at times through the year. When on Valentine's Day, she had her awareness directed to a little candy heart on the floor, and it had a saying on it that was something that he used to say to her. So at the end of that year, we're having a session, and I was standing behind her, and I was doing some Reiki, and she said, "I sense that he's here." And I said, "Well, what do you want to say to him?" And he said, "I want to say I love you and I miss you." And I could see in the corner of my office like a shadowy figure, and he was communicating to me, to her, it's time for me to go, and I love you too, want you to have a happy life, and so forth. And so I said, tell him to look to the light and see if he sees anybody of his loved ones, former loved ones, parents, and so forth in the light. And he did. And she said, he sees his father. And I said, that's good. Tell him to go to his father. She says he doesn't want to go. He's got issues with his father. So then I had to take a moment and communicate to him, I want you to look to your father and tell him what it is you're upset about and what you would have loved to have differently. I hated it when you did this, and I loved it if you did that. And I had him go through a series of things like that, from what he didn't want to what he would have wanted. Bada bing, bada boom, he resolved it, and she said he's gone to the light. And after that, she didn't feel him around anymore. And then I had an occasion, interestingly, with a cousin of mine who lost her boyfriend in that week. And it was at the end of the week, it was the initial episode, the opening episode of the show Ghost Whisperer. And she called me to tell me that he had died. And as soon as she told me on the phone, I could feel him coming through the back door of my heart. I could feel the energy coming. And let me say something about that. I meant to mention this last week. It was a year after these experiences of feeling the deceased loved ones, the spirit of them coming through my back, that I happened to be reading a book in the Beverly Center. I was out in West Hollywood, and I was reading a book about chakras, the 7 energy centers, spiritual energy centers, and related to the endocrine systems. And you can look that up. It's spelled Chakras, and I'm not going to go into all that. But the heart is one of the chakras. And so what I discovered was they had a picture of a human being, and they had the chakras, and they had little lists of things associated with each chakra. And in the back, they had, right behind on the heart chakra in the back, they had a list of things. And one of them was deceased loved ones' spirits coming through that portion. And so what I love is that for me, I've had experiences and then later had it confirmed in a book or something. I didn't read it first and then wonder, did I make it up? No, it happened. And then a year later, I found that that's the primary portal that they may use. So as I'm sitting here, I feel him come in and I wanted to watch the show. And so humorously, I said, sorry to this guy. You're going to have to wait. I'll try sending you through to by energy work through the Reiki to my cousin Melanie tonight. And so when I went to bed that night, I did try to see if I could do something in that regard, sort of be a vehicle for him to make it through to her and communicate with her. But I think she had some dreams and so forth, had a sense of him. But the next day it was noon and she called me again. And I said, okay, well, let's call him through. I got some time now. So I called his name. I felt him come through and I felt him almost kind of come out of my hands, the energy come through my hands. And I imagined doing distant Reiki on Melanie, which I imagined her seated in front of me and my hands on her. And she said, oh my God, I feel him. And he's telling me, Molly, Melanie, it's amazing. I was thinking it's got Patrick Swayze for a second. Molly, it's amazing. Love and son, you take it with you. Well, this was Melanie. It's amazing. It's just like Vermont. When we went to Vermont, only much even more beautiful. It's like unworldly beautiful, but like Vermont. And so they had a nice exchange, and I won't go into the other details, but that was the end of that. And so I remembered had read something that sometimes our soul goes to levels of other sort of dimensions in which it sort of looks like what we have here, still looks like Earth, but like a much more beautiful Earth. So that was really helpful for her, as it had been helpful for my patient to finally say goodbye to her, the love of her life that she had lost in the accident. So another example was I was trying to help a friend of mine who was dating a woman online who was having a complicated bereavement of a year since her loss of her good friend. And the friend had died, and they had been friends they were in their 40s now, and they'd been friends for 20 years. And so I was trying to help her. He asked me if I would talk with her and help her with that because she was kind of stuck. So I was talking with her, and so we finished having a session, and then the next night I was to go on the O'Reilly Factor, and this is back in early 2000s. And I went in at O'Reilly Factor and had my experience there. And the next night, after I'd been on television, I was watching TV. It's about 8:30 at night, and I was kind of tired from my travel to New York and so forth and being on the show. And I kind of nodded out during a commercial, just a little nod out. And as I opened my eyes, a couple of seconds later, I saw this most beautiful woman seated with a blue suit on at the foot of my bed. And she was as real as you can imagine in daylight. I mean, it was at night, but it was well lit room. And she was there and very concretely real. Blue suit, looked like Gloria Vanderbilt. And I wondered if this was her deceased loved one, this woman's deceased loved one. And I said, are you? And I said the name of the woman. And I felt this intense looking at me, this energy kind of coming to me from this woman. And she didn't say anything. And then she atomized, just like a perfume bottle. That's the word it was best described. As if you pressed the old rubber piece on a perfume bottle, and poof, little droplets came out. And so she went from this concrete form to little droplets. So I got on the computer, and I went to send her an email and said, I think your friend may have shown up. And I typed that out. Hit send, didn't go. Hit send, didn't go. Hit send, didn't go. Again, fifth time, hit send, didn't go. And then I said, I wonder if it's your mother. I had some sense. And I said, it's not your friend, but I wonder if it's your mother. And bingo, it went. Sure enough, when she got back to me, she validated it had been her mother. Now, the interesting thing related to my having been on the O'Reilly factor the night before, talking about Dr. Phil and his appearances on Oprah and so forth, was that I was able to do, it was kind of like Dr. Phil and meets John Edwards. Now, John Edwards at the time was a medium on the show with helping people contact lost loved ones and so forth. So what happened was I was able, by seeing this woman, I was able to see that this woman, we'll call her Sue. That's not, I'm not using a real name, but we'll say Sue. So Sue had lost her friend, Betty. We'll call her Betty. So Sue lost Betty. And so Sue, in losing Betty, I could see not only lost, because they both lost their mothers. That was their bond. Sue and Betty both lost their mothers when they were in their 20s. And now they'd been together for 20 years. And now Sue had lost Betty. And I was able to see that in losing Betty, she was re-experiencing the loss of her mother all over again, because the connection with Betty kind of sealed up and helped her make the transition and sort of sealed over the loss she had of her mother. So she was re-experiencing the loss of her mother through the loss of Betty. And then the other thing I was able to see was that I knew Betty was very pretty, and Sue didn't feel very attractive, although she was a quiet, softer look and wasn't this flamboyant beauty that Betty was. And so in losing Betty, Sue was again losing a kind of a support for her self-esteem. And she kind of felt like an ugly duckling in a way compared to Betty and then compared to her mother. So I could see that when she lost her mother, this idealized beauty, and Betty, she lost her self-esteem as well as losing another loved one. So I was able to package that up and interpret that for her. So here it was, sort of doing a piece of therapy with the other side. So it was a healing reunion, and it helped her move on in her bereavement. So these communications with other sides are real, and they're valid. So if you've lost a loved one during the pandemic, feel free to communicate with them. And so in the next week, I'll present some other ones. So just so you know, so the emphasis is you can actually see them in some instances, as well as just feel their presence. And that was amazing to me, that seeing them. And there's been other ones where I've seen the person as clear as day, and they're like backlit. They're so real looking. So again, the mantra is for you to remind yourself this week, I am more than my physical body and mind. That there's something that when the body-mind complex is gone, there's something that leaves, and whatever else happens, that's open to question. You know, as I talked about last week, the scientific materialist doctor was going to a place where he was going to be told where he would go next for presumably his growth and learning. Okay, so it's a more magical world than we may realize, and it's a chance for you to heal your losses of loved ones and know that you're communicating with them, even though you may not see it. And that one way is to really be attentive to synchronicities, to meaningful coincidences, a song that you shared together, or something comes on the radio, a TV show, a comment a friend makes, like a woman I knew who was missing her mother, and then she looked up and saw a big poster that said, drive as though your mother's seated in the passenger seat. It was an ad for safe driving, and she had felt like her mother was there. So that's what you look for. So have a great week, and I'll see you next week.